till we sound together as one group the mantra of the disciples' degree. May the energy of the divine self inspire us and the light of the soul direct. May we be led from darkness to light, from the unreal to the real, from death to immortality. We continue in Aries, in the light of life itself. We connect with soul intention, that soul intention being the vibratory activity of which, under the impulse of the monad, initiates the successive involutionary periods which produce appearance upon the physical plane. And in 2025, we begin in this sign with the festival of the Christ. And on this festival time, or during this festival time, part 3, as we open to the energies of Aries and the new astrology as a discipleship group.
We are breathing into the energies of Aries and opening to breathe more deeply. Those dynamic energies embodying the new astrology, the science of relations, into our group service. For esoteric astrology is essentially the purest presentation of occult truth in the world at this time, because it is the science which deals with those conditioning and governing energies and forces which play through and upon the whole field of space and all that is found within that field. The new astrology is essentially the science of relations, found in the science of the rays, the science of triangles, the science of the centers, as given to us by Master Dwalkul in esoteric astrology. Space is an entity in which we live and move and have our being. Dwalkul tells us that the new astrology is group-oriented. Our study, meditation, and service involves fostering right relationships by achieving soul focus with purity of motive, inspired by a loving heart. We offer ourselves in service, aiding humanity in achieving soul consciousness.
We continue here in part 3 with the themes that we follow in Aries, that life from cosmic to systemic to planetary into the etheric plane, the physical etheric plane, with the keynotes of creation, being, activity, strife, and synthesis. Will, purpose, and today consideration of the direction of the seventh ray. Progression on the path through the triangles, the centers in the triangles, the law of attraction and repulse, and consideration of the first initiation and the will. We do this through the awakening of centers in interconnecting triangles, activating the will to align with purpose. Let us relate the energies of Aries to the new astrology, the science of triangles with the centers, the rays, and the essential relations, particularly the fourth essential relation, soul and personality, and the fifth essential relation, the centers above the diaphragm with those below the diaphragm. We live and move and have our being, experience and expression through the law of vibration. Vibration perceivable as light, sound, color, and direction, as we are becoming the recipients of impression. One of the impressions shared in a previous session in Aries from one of our group members was the need to focus on the light, the teachings and methods of the Lord Buddha. And that particular group member bringing the light into and through study of the Buddhist practices that have assured their progress along the path. Others work with sound, still others with color. Today, we'll focus on the direction of the seventh ray. We'll mention again, as Aries relates us to both purpose and will, that purpose is passive, will is active. Purpose is waiting for the results of the activity of the will.
Remembering that Fohat is the divine energy manifesting at all levels. Some definitions for those who may not have studied the secret doctrine and treatise on cosmic fire. Fohat is divine thought or energy, the interplay between spirit, the highest, and matter, the lowest. Akasha, on a very high level, in manifestation, expresses itself as Fohat, or divine energy. And Fohat, on the different planes, is known as ether, air, fire, water, electricity, ether, prana, and similar terms. It is the sum total of that which is active, animated, or vitalized, and of all that concerns itself with the adaptation of the form to the needs of the inner flame of life.
Within our solar system, Vulcan and Pluto are expressions or custodians of this first ray energy coming from Aries, and are, as I have told you, esoteric planets. The first indication of the true spiritual will only begins to manifest upon the path of discipleship. Hence the late discovery of these two planets, late in point of time and from the angle of human knowledge. You have therefore the following direct line of will energy. 1. The pointer furthest from the pole star in the constellation of the Great Bear. This is, esoterically speaking, a great reservoir or focal point for divine energy carrying out God's purpose. The pointer nearest to the pole star is expressive of a lower aspect of the will, which, in speaking of humanity, we call self-will. 2. Aries, in which the will to create or to manifest makes its appearance, and the great divine experiment is initiated. Think of the entry of Neptune into the sign of Aries that is occurring at this time. Could we say the energies of the cosmic Christ entering and over the span of Neptune's passage in Aries, initiating the Christ, a new beginning? 3. Vulcan and Pluto are related to the two pointers and are only now beginning in any definite and clear manner to affect human response. Their effects has been planetary in its nature up to date, and has not hitherto been at all effective in either the fourth or the second kingdoms in nature.
And the last, Shambhala, the custodian of the plan for our planet, our focus on the level of planetary work as the point at which the energies of Aries can be found and known through Sanat Kumara to the Christ. So lifting our collective consciousness, lifting our soul focus beyond the planetary aura, attempt to focus on the extraplanetary triangle of the avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace, and the Lord Buddha. The avatar of synthesis streaming power and will, the spirit of peace, love, and the Lord Buddha, light, into and through Shambhala. To Sanat Kumara, the custodian of the plan, and the great beings. And to the Christ, the Maitreya, the Christ principle, the coming Christ, the ascended Christ, the embodiment of love on our planet. Shambhala, the recipient of the energies from Aries. Its great life, the Ancient of Days, the Lord of the world, Sanat Kumara, the eternal youth, the planetary logos, is the only existence upon our planet capable of responding to and carrying out the objectives of the solar logos. In his turn, he is the only one in our solar system capable of responding to the sevenfold emanating cause expressing itself through the Great Bear. In esoteric astrology, Master DK does deal with the psychological aspects of these emanations of the seven rays, which embody the will to good. Working through the medium of four planets, Mars, Mercury, the Sun, veiling Vulcan and Saturn. This is the will which lies behind all initiatory activity. The initiation of the previous stages of creation, the initiation of the urge to evolve, proceed, and progress, the initiation of the differentiating process in order to produce. And so in meditation, we invoke the energies of the planetary triangle of Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. And let us invoke the three expressions of the divine life in its triple mode: electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction. Whenever we invoke this triangle in our meditations, think of the three expressions of divine life as fire,
When in meditation,
as above Shambhala, so below in humanity. In Aries, we draw our attention to the two groups of beings. One is a small group of the knowers of the purpose, the passive purpose, the custodians of the will, and the other, a much larger group, the personnel known as the wise ones and the attractive energies of Shambhala. They function on the highest level of our cosmic physical plane. A dynamic electricity held as a great reservoir of potency, directed by these two groups, embodying the will and the quality of the will of deity, called by us the will to good. The will to good, focused as the eye of God, the eye of the planetary logos. So we focus on the divine circulatory flow as we consider each subsequent triangle and the recipients within that triangle of the subtle energies through the centers within that triangle. As that divine circulatory flow of electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction into and through each triangle and to the fields of distribution. From the head center in each of the triangles, the ray of will, intelligent will, and the expression of forward progression, connecting the Christ to the hierarchy, to each of the ashrams, through the initiates in those ashrams, into the new group of world servers, to activate forward progression in the soul of humanity. Remembering that admittance to Shambhala and a divine expression in life in service of the first aspect is the goal held for the members of the hierarchy. That all the lights are finally focused upon the mental plane. The light of the hierarchy as a center of radiance in the planetary body and embodying the light which understanding of the plan and cooperation with that plan produce, and which comes from identification upon mental levels with the spiritual will. Hierarchy, the heart center of our planet, identified with spiritual will, the will to good. Then let the group find within itself response to the greater 7 groups, which work out the hierarchical will with love and understanding. Each of the greater 7 groups of ashrams invoking an aspect of the will to good. Orienting to the second aspect or second expression of the divine life in each of the triangles, the heart centers, the Christ, the ray of love, intelligent love, in a spiral cyclic motion from the Christ, embodying the hierarchy into the heart center of each of the 7 ashrams, into the heart center of all the initiates, and into the heart center of the new group of world servers. There is no fire stronger than the fire of the heart, solar fire, into the souls of all and the soul of humanity.
Whoever, excuse me, whoever loves flowers is on the path of the heart. Whoever knows the striving to the heights is on the path of the heart. Whoever thinks with purity is on the path of the heart. Whoever knows of the higher worlds is on the path of the heart. Whoever is ready for infinity is on the path of the heart. So let us summon these hearts to realization of the source. It is right to understand the essence of the heart as something that belongs to both the subtle and the fiery worlds. One can perceive worlds through the heart, but not through the intellect. So wisdom is contrary to the intellect. But there is no ban on adorning the intellect with wisdom. Heart Sloka number 390.
Whoever
And now let us follow the path of the divine circulatory flow from the heart, the source of wisdom, into and through either the ajna or throat centers of the higher triangle. The ray is the primordial ray or the third ray. The aspect is intelligent activity, intellect, advised by wisdom through rotary motion, See the downflow of this divine circulatory flow through the triangles from the Christ to the hierarchy, into and through the 7 great ashrams, each invoking an aspect of the will to good, into and through the initiates, to the new group of world servers, the Yajna Center, the bridge between hierarchy and humanity, into the ajna and throat centers, activated in the higher triangle, in the soul vehicles of all those working to serve and develop and bring forth goodwill in humanity. Master DK reminds us that those on the path are receiving the impulses of divine expression. In Aries, through Mercury, and the great triangle of Aries, Scorpio, and Virgo, directly into Shambhala. And we use these superimposed triangles: head, heart, and humanity as the throat center, the new group as the ajna center, bringing these energies down.
Master DK enlarges somewhat upon the 3 modes of the Christ appearing, of his coming, his advent, and of his physical recognition by humanity. The first, by his overshadowing of all initiates and disciples who are today or will be at the time of his arrival active in the 3 worlds of human evolution. This involves his influencing their minds telepathically. This overshadowing or influencing will be his primary work upon the mental plane. This will constitute one of his most effective methods in his proposed spiritual interference in world affairs. Through the medium of these members, or affiliates of the hierarchy, he will have outposts of his consciousness in every nation. Through them, he can work. Raise an Initiation, page 615.
In every nation, they will work. The disciples and initiates receiving the impulses of divine expression, influencing their minds telepathically. As one of the most effective methods in his proposed spiritual interference in world affairs. Let us become the outposts of the Christ consciousness in every nation, so that through us he can work. Part of that is the development in those who wish to serve this Christ consciousness developing in all nations, is the development and the activation of the triangles of the major centers. And he says, I cannot too strongly reiterate the constant necessity for you to think in terms of energies and forces, of lines of force and energy relationships. As we bring together aspirants, those on the probationary path, disciples, and initiates up to the 4th degree, and form our working groups in meditation, study, and service.
It would repay the student to contemplate the interesting succession of triangles that are to be found, and the way in which they must be linked by the progression of the fire before that fire can perfectly vivify them, and thence pass on to other transmutations. We might enumerate some of these triangles, bearing always in mind that, according to the ray, so will proceed the geometric rising of the fire, and according to the ray, so will the points be touched in ordered sequence. Herein lies one of the secrets of initiation, and herein are found some of the dangers entailed in a too quick publication of information concerning the rays.
As we work in groups together under this impression from the higher, we can oftentimes forget that solar fire works through the groups according to the ray and across all the groups working in alignment with the Christic impulse. In all the nations, this geometric rising of the fire is occurring, and in the different groups, in a different ordered sequence. So we must develop a sensitivity to find the essence of a group's work, that we not misunderstand and misread the intention, the purity of motive, and that they are inspired by a loving heart. It's one of the challenges of integrating across groups and bringing together that an essential unity that is required for us to move forward in developing soul consciousness in humanity. For as there is a great triangle of force that is related to matter, form building, vitality, and substance. And that triangle is the spleen, the organ of prana or the physical vitality coming from the sun, the sacral center, the predisposing agent towards physical generation, and the center at the base of the spine, which, until the will aspect is aroused in man, feeds the life-giving principle, the will to live, to all parts of the human frame, and thus creates a great triangle of force concerned with matter, with substance, form building, creation, vitality, and persistence in form. And this triangle is a reflection of a much higher one. Therefore, it has a great potency. It is a triangle below the diaphragm. In contemplating the 5th essential relation, the relation between the centers above the diaphragm, the head, heart, and ajna, head, heart, and throat, with the centers below the diaphragm, we must always consider the planetary, solar, and cosmic forces corresponding to the integration of soul personality and eventual soul control, so that above the diaphragm, head, heart, and ajna or throat are directing those below the diaphragm. This is the goal. And the reason we emphasize this fifth essential relation. Consider the impact in relation to your group work, the groups you're working with. For most are working on the physical plane together and attempting to influence form building, vitalization, and substantive action. Focusing on the higher to impact the lower. As we move through the year together, we'll continuously come back to this map that we're given by Master Dwal Kul of the triangles as they form. Just a note, this triangle related to the head center, fully developing in spiritual man to the fifth initiation, that of the master. It is dominant in the occultist, the initiate, the master, and it's dominant only after the third initiation.
From the heart, the teacher rejoices when the manifestation of the subtle body's sensations in the earthly shell becomes tangible. A person whose consciousness is being refined is perfectly right to feel that our essence is imprisoned within a dense shell. Of course, pain is sure to manifest when the subtle body connects with the network of nerves that runs over the surface of the body. Moreover, the subtle body has to recapture its own dwelling whenever it returns to the body. You already know that the subtle body is somewhat higher than the physical, which is why there is discomfort every time it returns. Once the subtle world has become a natural continuation of the earthly realm, there will inevitably arise the feeling that the subtle body is constantly separated from the earthly one. It could become an important new task for doctors to differentiate the pains that result from illness and those that arise from the movement of the subtle body within the dense self. So it is also possible to approach the sensations of the subtle body by following this medical path. In this way, one can connect two tasks, the spiritual and the physical.
Consider the effects in group formation. When we work together in the physical etheric plane, that there is a point where some do experience a kind of pain, and bringing attention again to the higher, to the subtle body, and not focusing on the pain in the physical being, the etheric pain of working together, actually, where you can rise to a higher level and maintain as a group the kind of shell that's required to gestate the group's work, and yet continue to expand out and be inclusive of the other groups, and let that radiance expand to be cooperating and expanding the larger group field of service. It demands a level of detachment to whatever we have created as individuals and as individual groups into a higher realm. Many of us are working in that field now. Always invoking the higher triangle: head, heart, ajna, in order to build the capacity of the larger groups to use the throat center and impact humanity's soul consciousness as it develops. So before we continue, let us align as a group and see our group as a unit impressed by the masters of the ashram of synthesis, this great developing ashram of the first, second, and seventh rays, and see our path ahead leading to the path of discipleship and the path of initiation in service. From the highest point of soul focus, with the attitude of the observer, we say together, I am the soul. I am light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Moving out of the square of manifestation into the aura, into the higher mental plane and the soul vehicle, the highest point that you can attain.
Together, we enter into a point of light, directing our way as we enter deeply into our contemplative approach to the energies at this time of the Festival of Christ in Aries. We recognize our pledged discipleship. We recognize our achieved alignment. We recognize the equipment we have been given, gratefully rendered. We recognize the soul, the source of love wisdom. We recognize the hierarchy as the heart center of our planetary life and being, as we endeavor to align with hierarchical intent and touch the rain cloud of knowable things.
Let us envision the group onto Corona extending from each initiate of the first degree and higher upward across the plane of the higher mind, touching the spiritual triad. Imaginatively seeing the great band of light extending to the Maitria, the Christ, along the rays, potently impacting humanity in Aries. We sound the words of power. I see the greatest light. I assert the fact. Two merge with one. The highest light controls. The highest and the lowest meet, drawing down into our service the potency of love wisdom to manifest in all our groups under the bridging power of the new group of world servers. Within the fire of mind, focused within the head's clear light, let the group stand. The burning ground has done its work. The clear, cold light shines forth, and cold it is, and yet the heat evoked by the group love permits the warmth of energetic moving out. Behind the group, there stands the door. Before them opens out the way. Together, let the band of brothers onward move out of the fire, into the cold, and toward a newer tension. Aligning with the new group of world servers, the spiritual agents bridging between hierarchy and humanity. We pause to gather impressions in the chalice of the group heart. We sound the silent Om, invoking the soul, and as impressions are received, please make a note so that we may share with the group. And let us sound the mantra of the new group of world servers, recognizing the three aspects of divinity, the essence of each statement. May the power of the one life, anchored in the heart center, pour through the group of all true servers. May the love of the one soul, anchored in the head center, characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the great ones. May we fulfill our part in the one work, expressed as the integrated personality directed through the awakened Ajna Center, through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. I come forth, and from the plane of mind, I rule. Keywords for the initiate in Aries.
The energies of Aries bring the force of will. Will is active, intelligent purpose, lovingly applied. Coherency, affecting lives, forms, and substances, is an expression of will and purpose, motivated by love, and implemented intelligently in carrying forward the plans through which the purpose seeks expression. Will is the governing principle of the next or coming solar system, which will be brought into manifestation through the agency of those human beings who, in this solar system, arrive at the full expression of the will aspect. Will governs the way into Shambhala and is the foundation for all approach to, appreciation of, and identification with being. It is that which holds all things which in this circle of divine life, and this energy is the agent for the revelation of the divine purpose.
Emphasizing from Master DK in esoteric astrology what we have considered before, that Aries embodies the will to create that which will express the will to good. The influence of Mars and Mercury, the one bringing conflict and the death of the form, and the other bringing illumination and the development of the intuition as a result of that conflict and death. New cycles of being and of consciousness are initiated by conflict. The result of this initiating, energizing will is to produce such beneficent effects of intuitive understanding and the activity of Mercury as the messenger of the gods. It can be seen how truly through conflict, the will to good is wrought out.
The law of repulse upon the paths of discipleship and initiation. The law of repulse. When the discriminating sense, the spiritual correspondence of the sense of smell, the last of the five senses to emerge in humanity, has been adequately developed in the aspirant, and the aspirant knows the pairs of opposites and has gained a vision of that which is neither of them, then the aspirant can pass on to the path of discipleship and enter upon the arduous task of cooperating with the spiritual laws, particularly with the law of repulse. At first, the disciple hardly recognizes the influence of this law. It is as difficult to grasp its implications and to measure its possible effects as it would be for the average person with a mediocre education and a total ignorance of esotericism to grasp the significance of such an occult truth as that expressed in these words. The construction of the Antakarana between the higher and lower manas by the divine Agnishvata, the solar angel, functioning through the egoic lotus, is the task to be carried forward during the contemplative stage of meditation. This statement is relatively simple to grasp intellectually by the average occult student, but is utterly meaningless to the ordinary person in the world. The law of repulse is equally difficult of understanding by the disciple entering upon the path. The disciple has to learn to recognize its influence and then must learn to do three things. One, through service, to steadily decentralize the self and thus begin occultly to repulse the personality. The disciple must see to it that the motive is love for all beings and not desire for one's own release. Two, through an understanding of the pairs of opposites, the disciple begins esoterically to isolate the noble middle path of which the Buddha spoke. Three, through comprehension of the words of Christ, enjoining humanity to let their light shine. The disciple begins to construct the path of light, which leads to the center of life and guiding out of darkness into light, from the unreal to the real, and from death to immortality. This is the true path of the Antakarana, which the disciple weaves from out of the self, speaking symbolically, just as the spider weaves its thread.
Sound the statement, the mantram of the will, to the personality made by you, the soul, the disciple. In the center of the will of God I stand. Naught shall deflect my will from his. I implement that will by love. I turn towards the field of service. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men. The triangle divine, the higher triangle, head, heart, ajna throat center, personality. Activating the will to initiate, the will to unify, the will to evolve, the will to harmonize, the will to act, the will to cause, the will to express. An aspect of the will to good.
These are all expressions or effects of the activity of the ray energy, and all can be best summed up in the thought of a dynamic entering into, by an act of the focused will, a new state of consciousness. This leads inevitably to a new realization of being. In this statement, you have one of the basic definitions of initiation as far as the initiation of a human being is concerned. These are dim reflections of the dynamic processes to which the one life subjects itself as it enters into the dualistic condition of spirit matter. The will here referred to lies behind the dualism and is analogous to the reception and focusing of an initial idea as it enters into the mind of a creative, advanced human being, his thought processes, and his achievements. Some understanding of this will come if the disciple will consider what fixed aspiration, a vision of the goal, and a determination to follow the will to good has affected in his life. Beyond this realization, he cannot go, but it holds for him the cosmic seed of understanding. It is necessary to remember that on the path of initiation, the whole training process is turned towards the evolution of the will, and this is possible because behind the development of love lies the revelation of the will. It is rightly taught that humanity's immediate goal is the unfoldment into full expression of the love nature. This begins to take place and reaches a relatively high stage of unfoldment upon the path of discipleship. The detail of the process, in a broad and general sense, might be stated as follows. We have the touch of acquiescence or birth. 1, path of evolution and probation. A, unfoldment of intellect and of sensory perception. B, response to the center called humanity. C, the mind takes control and personality functions. Two, the path of discipleship. A, unfoldment of the love nature. B, achievement of illumination. C, response to the center called the hierarchy. D, Buddhi or the intuition is in control and the soul functions. This is baptism and the touch of enlightenment. For 3, the path of initiation. A, unfoldment of the will. B, achievement of synthesis. C, response to the center called Shambhala. And D, dynamic purpose in control, the will to good, the monad functions. Transfiguration, crucifixion as stages of initiation.
As we've learned and voiced, it's necessary to remember that on the path of initiation, the whole training process is turned towards the evolution of the will. And this is possible because behind the development of love lies the revelation of the will. Will being the energy of the soul, expressing itself as direction, progress, and conformity to the plan. This plan, from the standpoint of the individual, is as much of the sensed will of God as one can in any particular stage in one's experience, grasp and understand. So, what is our collective experience of this as part of our group service in our groups? As we move forward through the festival of Aries into the coming week and more, as we do our group service, consider the energy of the soul expressing itself as direction, progress, and conformity to the plan. How much of the sensed will of God can we grasp and understand? And bring into active expression in our group service.
Would you like me to read?
Yes.
The occult aphorism, quote, to will, to know, to dare, and to be silent, has a special significance not hitherto revealed, and at which it is only possible for Master DK to hint. Those of you who have the inner knowledge will comprehend at once. To will, These words relate to the ultimate achievement, when, by an act of the combined will of the soul and of the lower man, unification and realization are brought about. It concerns the center at the base of the spine. To know, these words concern the ajna center, the center between the eyebrows. A hint lies in the words, "Let the mother know the father." It has relation to the marriage in the heavens. To dare. These words give the clue to the subordination of the personality and have a close connection with the solar plexus, the great clearinghouse of desire and of the astral forces, and also the main center of the transmutative work. To be silent. This phrase relates to the transmutation of the lower creative energy into the higher creative life. The sacral center has to relapse into silence. From the Treatise on White Magic, page 287.
On reflection, one might associate each one of these statements to the first 4 initiations. To be silent, the birth. To dare, the baptism. To know, the transfiguration. To will, the crucifixion.
The goal for group soul consciousness is to achieve a point of tension or focused immovable will. The point of tension is found when the dedicated will of the personality is brought in touch with the will of the spiritual triad. This takes place in 3 clearly defined stages. Stage 1. The lower will aspect, focused in the mental body, the will to activity of the personality, expresses itself in the cultivation of goodwill. Stage 2. The love aspect of the soul is brought into touch with the corresponding aspect of the triad. When the initiate grasps the intention of the divine creating logos, goodwill expands into the will to good. Stage 3. After the 4th initiation, direct unbroken relation between the monad via the triad and the form which the master is using to do his work among men, the attainment of the will to be, not as an individual expression, but being as an expression of the whole.
We pause. And as stated in this sloka from Infinity, Book 1, the pearl of the heart is the most subtle tension, the solar fire. Only with that tension do we create worlds. The world of strivings builds the future. The source of love unites all that exists. Martha, would you read for us that?
Sloka 203.
No, what you shared before we started today from the planetary system, TPS, about
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. In the space of Aries, the fires of the will to overpowering love on behalf of the resurrection or the elevation of humanity is our opportunity.
As we ponder and contemplate these teachings in the coming weeks, please jot down any other impressions that you may have that we can share with the group at this very, very important time, approaching the resurrection of humanity. And continuously align as a group life, quality, and appearance. In all of our group work. This sloka from heart seems to capture, in a way, the thoughts of many who are on this path and also deeply involved in the world of form, where our feelings are aroused and must bring those feelings from the solar plexus to the heart so that those feelings can be transmuted into love and the expanding field of love wisdom that we seek to embody. Feeling will always prevail over reason. One has to accept this as a truth that cannot be suppressed. Therefore, when we speak about the heart, we are affirming the citadel of feeling. But how distant from lust is the feeling of the heart? The teaching about creative feeling will lead to an understanding of the creativity of thought. Let us not pick apart the domain of feeling because it is a single field in bloom. We know what grows when feelings are sown. But where are the fruits born of reasoning alone? Reason cannot create if the seed of the heart is not provided. So when we speak of the heart, we are speaking about the beautiful. So we lift and purify and transmute the lower energies into the clearinghouse of the solar plexus to create that field of pure, translucent, transparent light. And we create and align with that as a group, as the life quality and appearance of our groups. So the feeling is and becomes the creativity of thought, pure, loving kindness, and the qualities of the heart. In focusing where humanity is currently focused, what is our role in assisting humanity in the first initiation to be silent? This phrase relates to the transmutation of the lower creative energy into the higher creative life. And the sacral center has to relapse into silence. So when we build the antakarana, the first ray, I assert the fact. The seventh ray, the highest and the lowest meet, the will to initiate and the will to express. The lower duality relapses into silence.
Express the will to be and do. The will is too often regarded as a power by means of which things are done. Activities are instituted and plans worked out. This general definition of the will is easiest for men to formulate because it is understood by them in terms of their own self-will, the will to individual self-betterment. Selfish and misunderstood at first, but tending eventually to selflessness as evolution carries out its beneficent task. Then the will is interpreted in terms of the hierarchical plan, and the effort of the individual becomes that of negating the self-will and seeking to merge personality will with that of the group being itself an aspect of the hierarchical effort. Unfold the power to manifest. This is a great step onward in orientation and will lead to a change in consciousness eventually. This last sentence is of importance.
In the words of Master DK, know thyself, know thy group. Proceed slowly and with caution. Understand that eternity is long. The words advising us to not get caught up in the urgency of a particular physical world experience.
The direction of ray 7. Under an arc between two rooms, the seventh magician stood. One room was full of light and life and power, of stillness which was purpose, and a beauty which was space. The other room was full of movement, a sound of great activity, a chaos without form, of work which had no true objective. The eyes of the magician were fixed on chaos. He liked it not. His back was towards the room of vital stillness. He knew it not. The ark was tottering overhead. He murmured in despair, "For ages I have stood and sought to solve the problem of this room, to rearrange the chaos so that beauty might shine forth. And the goal of my desire, I sought to weave these colors into a dream of beauty and to harmonize the many sounds. Achievement lacks, naught but my failure can be seen. And yet I know there is a difference between that which I can see before my eyes and that which I begin to sense behind my back. What shall I do?" Above the head of the magician and just behind his back, and yet within the room of ordered beauty, a magnet vast began to oscillate. It caused the revolution of the man within the ark, which tottered to a future fall. The magnet turned him round until he faced the scene and room unseen before. Then, through the center of his heart, the magnet poured its force attractive. The magnet poured its force repulsive. It reduced the chaos until its forms no longer could be seen. Some aspects of a beauty unrevealed before emerged, and from the room a light shone forth, and by its powers and life forced the magician to move forward into light and leave the ark of peril. Such are some thoughts translated from an ancient metrical arrangement, which may throw some light upon the duality of personality and the work to be done by the beings found upon the septennate of rays. Know we where we stand? Do we realize what we have to do? As we strive to enter into light, let us count no price too great to pay for that revelation.
Second stanza of the Great Invocation. Let the lords of liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O mighty one. Let the souls of all awaken to the light, and may we stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O mighty one. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O mighty one. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O mighty one, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end.
The third keynote for Aries: enter into battle for the Lord.
The first of 7 rules. The first of the 7 factors or rules for inducing soul control. 1. The tendency, innate and ineradicable, to blend and synthesize. This is a law or rule of life itself. This tendency results on the form side in destruction and wreckage, with its accompaniments of pain and sorrow. On the life side, it results in release, liberation, and subsequent expansion. B, this tendency is the basic cause of all initiation, individual, racial, and planetary and systemic. C, it is an act of the will. It is the result of an act of the will and is caused by the impulsion of the sensed and innate purpose of God. However, and this is a point oft forgotten, this tendency is motivated by the recognition of the planetary logos, that his plan is conditioned in its turn and is an integral part of a still larger plan, that of the solar deity. God, the solar logos, is likewise conditioned by a still higher life purpose.
And so we draw back to the recognition that we began with, that it is Sanat Kumara, the planetary logos, who is able to receive, the only planetary entity that can receive this larger plan of the solar deity. And that is in Shambhala, and now is influencing the Christ. And so as we move forward in Aries, consider what our part is on our small scale as we induce soul control for ourselves and attempt to bring forward soul consciousness in humanity. As we reach toward the spiritual triad from the soul personality through the soul vehicle, the causal body on the higher mental plane, and we attempt to touch the Buddhic plane and intuition, embodying self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. We move from the will of the personality to touch the spiritual will, where we begin to sense that in group formation, and to draw down from the highest plane, technically the atmic plane, A demand goes forth, and the result of that demand is through the fires, will work out on mental levels, just as the earlier two demands across the desert, that of the physical, etheric, and over all the seas, that of the emotional, worked out on the physical and astral levels. So in invoking the spiritual triad, the will of God, spiritual will, and the will of humanity, focused in the Christ, in this festival of the Christ, Aries. We activate a point of tension as a group. The identification of the group brain and group soul with the will aspect and the preservation of that identification, unchanged and immovable in all circumstances and difficulties. We sound the mantra of the will to the group personality made by the group soul as the disciple. In the center of the will of God, we stand. Naught shall deflect our will from God's will. We implement that will by love. We turn towards the field of service. We, the triangle divine, as we attempt to link with the spiritual triad, work out that will within the square and serve humanity. We arrive at unity through effort. Keynote of Aries. And as we have said many times, for those who ask of what real use am I, how can I in my small sphere be of service, DK says it's by pointing out to us that by thinking this teaching into the minds of the public, by expressing before all of humanity in every aspect of our lives the teaching it imparts, and by a life lived in conforming with its teaching, our service is very real. It is necessary to involve a pledging of the entire personality to the helping of humanity and the promise to the higher self that we will be made to lose sight of the self in service, a service to be rendered in the place and in the circumstances which each of us in our own destiny and duty that the soul has imposed upon us. So know thyself, proceed slowly and with caution, study effects, cultivate the realization that eternity is long and that which is slowly built up endures forever. And as we do, meeting each week, as we will throughout this year, aim at regularity.
Oft an aspirant says,
Let us summon up resourcefulness so that we can establish resistance. Each of us must place this thought upon the heart, for otherwise it will not be brought to fulfillment. The main thing is not to let the instructions go unapplied. Blessed be the dangers, for they teach us unity and resistance. When these qualities have been strengthened by the heart's affirmation, the armor will also be ready. The armor of Mars was prepared and forged by Venus and Vulcan. And so the symbol in a wise myth combines various elements into a concept of life. At times it is so necessary to unify through silence. Nothing influences the heart so much as intense silence. Heartslogger 401.
So let us maintain the intensest silence in this festival of the Christ as we approach the full moon. And remember, as you sound the final dispensation of the invocation, the great invocation, keep in mind and hold in the heart how this invocation can be interpreted in terms of the three modes of the return of the Christ that align with the evocation of united hierarchical response through the use of the great invocation. We hold these every time we sound the final dispensation of the great invocation. And we will look at this in silence and sound this final stanza in silence, emphasizing on the next slide each segment. Let light stream forth into the minds of men, the influencing of the minds of disciples, the enlightening of intelligent humanity, the mental plane. Let love stream forth into the hearts of men, the influencing of the masses everywhere, the outpouring of the Christ Spirit and the astral plane. And finally, the purpose which the masters know and serve, the anchoring of hierarchical energy on earth, the physical appearance of the Christ, the physical plane. So take time, let us sound it in silence together. Oh, oh, oh. Gratitude. We continue next Sunday with a deeper look at the planetary influences streaming into Shambhala and the Christ at this time of the Festival of the Christ in Aries.